In this video, I'll show the technical aspects of the headless personalization capabilities of Magnolia. Personalization is a popular and powerful feature. It's a key tool to make better and more relevant customer experiences. Brands want to take advantage of that in a headless architecture too, and now they can. The foundation of this feature is that the REST delivery endpoint can now deliver personalized content. So-called trait detectors are run, and the endpoint will return a different response depending on the context. I'll show you how this endpoint works first, and then how it can be used in the Pages app with the Visual Spa Editor. But let's start with the traditional FreeMarker project. Okay, so let's take a look at one of these pages. And on this page, we have a single component. This is the original variant. So this is what's shown when it's not personalized. And then we have the blue logo vulcanized trainers when we select blue color. And if we look at the audience for this component, then we see that there's a favorite color trait which has been selected and the value blue has been entered. So anytime that trait is present in blue, this component should be rendered. So let's take a look at that. We have a Postman collection that comes with the demo. And first we're just going to look at personalization by a single parameter. And we've got a request for the original variant. And if we run that, you can see the URL we're hitting is just the page, shoes, men. And we have the component, and the component is these blacklight signature trainers that we saw. So now let's look at the personalized variant. We also have that request, and the only difference here is that we're using a query string because it's a query string trait, favorite color equals blue. And if we send that, we get the same response because the endpoint is not yet personalized. So we've added a new property. By default, all the endpoints are working the same as they have, but we have this new property which we can enable, personalized to true. And now if we make that same request, we do get the blue logo vulcanized trainers. So now let's take a look at an example with two parameters. So back over to the demo project, we have the home page. And this one is very similar setup, but here we have the original, which is the blacklight signature trainers. And then how about women black? And if we look at the audience, we see that we now have this additional gender trait, which is a drop-down box, and the text box, which was the favorite color, which has been set up. Okay, so let's take a look at that over in Postman. So this is now multiple women and black. And you can see the difference here is that because they're both query string request parameters, now we have gender equals women and favorite color black. Here's the two params. And as expected, we get the personalized content, inspirational nautical trainers. Now let's look at this full query. I'm going to just copy this over and open it up in Firefox. You can see that we're getting the full page back, which it's got the footer, it's got the main page content, but the personalization can also be used to get sub-content such as an area or an actual component. So let's do that. Instead of just going to the shoes page, we'll drill down into main and into the component. Now if we render the query, it actually won't work yet because the personalization endpoint is configured to just return pages. But let's add a component. So, and now we should return components as well. If I refresh the page, I get just the personalized content that I might be interested in for my front end. There's one other feature I want to show that's important. You may have a front end where you want to do the logic in the front end of which of the variants is displayed, or for example, you might want to allow a user in a different front end to choose which variant should be rendered. And for that, we have another parameter, variants equals all. So now I'm just getting that component, but I'm getting the blacklight signature trainers, the basket cup trainers, and basically all of the different variants all in one response. All right, so let's take a quick look at how these traits are actually configured. Because with Headless, you can use all of the existing traits, but we've introduced a few new traits that are good for Headless context. So within the Light module, just where we have the delivery endpoint, the templates, we can also provision traits. If we look at the favorite color trait, very simple. So we're just saying the type of the trait. It's this request parameter trait. And the request parameter will simply be the name of the definition, favorite color. That's all I need to do. And we also have this gender trait. It's also a request parameter trait. But in this case, we wanted to supply that drop-down box. And so we specify a rule field. By default, it's the text field, but we can specify the rule field as a combo box. And here I just use the optionless data source and provide my two options. And then you can configure the value field too, which is used in the preview as visitor. And here I've just taken advantage of YAML to basically have this whole definition also for the value field. All right, now we've seen how the delivery endpoint and the new traits work. Now for part 2. All Magnolia personalization features are now fully supported in Headless Visual Spa Editor projects. And we've updated our minimal Visual SPA Editor demo projects with a personalization example. First, let's take a look at the results. We've added this personalization page. Let's go ahead and open it up. So in this simple example, the trait value is just entered in a form, but the same principles would apply even if you were using a marketing automation system, a CDP, or some sort of behavioral-based analysis. You enter your age, and once you enter your age, you're going to get like a personalized recommendation as an activity. So if we put in 12, okay, this gets updated. How about writing some BMX? If I enter 34, okay, how about a mountain bike ride? And if I enter 78, how about an e-bike ride on the shore? And now let's see how this is working. So basically, when you enter the value, it's getting stored in the session storage, and then it's making a new request to Magnolia with an age group, either child, adult, or senior, and it's the personalized endpoint just giving the correct response. So the front end doesn't need to worry about that. It just renders whatever comes from the system. So let's just take a look at that. If we look in the storage, under session storage, here we can see that, okay, it's storing the actual age value so that it can keep rendering it here, even if the visitor goes away and comes back. And even more importantly, it stores MGL age header, and in this case, it stores senior. If I put in 12 again, then it's showing child. And this is then what's sent to the delivery endpoint. So let's take a look at network. Here we can see the requests that were made. And here is the REST call. Now it doesn't have anything, it doesn't have a query string now, but if we look at the request headers, we see that it's sending a new header xmgnl age child. And then it's getting the personalized response and rendered. So now let's take a look at the author experience. I think it's nice we can just recreate this this page very easily, and I think that's informative. So we'll just call it P1, and we have a personalization template. P1 is fine. And this page template, it already comes with the form kind of baked into it, and now we can add a component that the author wants to personalize to create that experience. So let's add a Or we just add a headline. And this is the default text. They should enter their age to get something personalized. And now let's personalize this headline. We do that by adding a component variant. It's created a variant. Let's put in the content, okay? And now we need to choose an audience for that. So this will be youth, and we can add a segment. Let's just add a trait directly. We've got this new trait in the project, the age. And we want this to be shown when the trait is showing child. Okay, let's add one more. Now we've got variant 1. And we can add in the senior. We can skip the adult. And give it an audience, of course. So this will be, and set it to senior. Okay, so we've basically rebuilt. You've seen how the authoring experience is working, even though it's a SPA. So this is a full React project. And why don't we just try it quick, see that it's still working. So here we can enter the age. Great, it's getting personalized. All right, so now you've seen the author experience to create this personalized experience. Now, how as a developer do you actually make this happen? How is this implemented? Let's look at the project. So starting with the basics, of course, we have the endpoint, and the endpoint needs to have personalized true. We have a trait. In this case, it is a header trait instead of the request parameter trait we had before. And we also have cookie trait as another option. And the other Magnolia already existing traits, any custom traits would still be relevant, but we've just introduced these new very lightweight traits for Headless. And then we've added the personalization template, which is actually just the same as the basic page template, only it has a different name. And in the front end, we've changed a bit. So now let's look at the front end. What does it take to implement this? We have the new personalization page script. And here's where we render that form. It's actually just a separate component, the age form, that's hard-coded. And the age form is pretty simple. We just have this form, and on submit, we save age. And save age is essentially storing to the session the actual number that they put in. And then based on the age value, it's actually storing just the text child, adult, or senior into this other session storage mgnull age header. So now the question is, how does the REST request get made in this personalized context from the app? And before we look at that, we need to look at the actual preview features that are available in Magnolia Personalization. So, here we're editing the content, we've put the content in, and here right away we can switch between the different variants if we just want to see kind of what the content's going to look like. But of course, we might also want to preview the page without those green bars. And here we can see it's still reflecting the content that we've selected. And in order for that edit and this preview page to work, we actually are using that query string parameter variance equals all, so that the front end can choose exactly which one it wants to show based on the user, using these controls. But the next case is the preview as visitor. And this is interesting in that here, the author actually gets to try out different personalization contexts. Because of course, entering a value in a form here is pretty easy, but there, it could be personalized based on all kinds of things. So they need an easy way to test. And in this case, so I can basically just like add any kind of trait in the whole system. So we want to simulate essentially this age trait. Here we have the drop down. Here we can look at the senior response, and you see it updates. Hey senior, our e-bikes are powered up. So even though it has age 12, it's really just listening to the exact trait value that I want to somehow impersonate. And how this is now working behind the scenes is the previous visitor system is loading this iframe with the project with specific, just get the frame info. And we can see it's passing the X, any trait, it passes as a query string and it just prepends this preview so that it knows what parameters to look for. So it's passing the X dash mgnl age equals senior. And it would pass any other traits that I want to preview and just lets us know that it's in the mgnl preview visitor equals true. So what we can do is just pass on any of these traits to the content delivery endpoint, and it will return the personalized response. So let's take a look at how that's done. So in these projects, this happens in the page loader. So essentially, we get the query string parameter, and we just want to pass this on. And however, in certain cases, essentially when I'm in either the preview or the editor, then I want to add that variance all. And of course, in our demo, we want to set the header, the actual mgnl age header. And then when this is preparing the final URL that's going to make the REST request. And here we're just adding on this query string that we prepared. So you just have to take care of a few of those details, and then it makes the personalized request and gets the personalized content back. Now that you know the key ingredients for headless personalization, check out the docs. You'll find both of these sample projects, which are a great way to get started. Have fun, and let us know what you create.